For those of you that are new here, my name is Eric Allen, and 9 months ago, I accidentally became a true crime YouTuber when, as a side project, I took it upon myself to make a documentary series on an incredibly complex true crime case in my hometown of Beaufort, South Carolina. As I branched out and covered other cases, I traveled to locations to film and interviewed key players in these stories. As I obsessively dug into these cases, I've even uncovered bits of info that the police weren't aware of. This video is the first of a series I'm doing called The Cases You've Never Heard Of, where I'll travel to a geographical area and explore a few cases in that area all in one video. This will allow me to spread awareness for some of these unsolved cases that haven't been covered here on YouTube or in the media quite as much as some others. This episode will travel from Beaufort, South Carolina to North Georgia and cover an ex-police officer that lost her life in a state park after retiring from the police force. A 16-year-old girl who may have been the victim of a stalker, and a hairdresser who vanished from her salon, whose murder a serial killer may have falsely confessed to. All three of these happened within about an hour of each other in North Georgia, and I took a few days to get to know and film this area so I could bring you with me as I tell these stories. Be sure to subscribe if you're interested in seeing more. Mona Harris, a single mother, lived with her daughter Hannah Truelove in the town of Gainesville, Georgia. Gainesville is nestled on the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains, with much of it bordering one of the largest lakes in Georgia, Lake Lanier. Mona and her daughter Hannah lived in an apartment complex right on the lake. Hannah was a vibrant young 16-year-old who attended Gainesville High School, where she was pretty popular and had tons of friends, many of which also lived in the same apartment complex as her. Towards the back of the complex was a small common area with a picnic table where the group of friends would often be seen hanging out, talking and laughing after school. Adjacent to this area were some trails in the woods that led down to the lake, and it was common for the kids or other residents of the apartment complex to walk around this area. On August 23, 2012, Hannah woke up, got ready, and went to school just like any other day. After school, she came home and went to that common area to chat with some friends until around 7:30 p.m. But after this is when the timeline gets a little blurry. When 9:30 p.m. rolled around and Hannah had not returned home, her mother Mona didn't hesitate to call the police. 9:30 might not seem like a big deal, but Mona knew her daughter well, and it was just not like Hannah to come home late, or at least not call, and her mother was certain that something had to be wrong. When the police arrived, they began searching the area, but shortly after they began their search, a huge rainstorm hit. Not only did the downpour make it more difficult to search, but some of the places that they would typically look, like the ravines and ditches in some of the wooded areas, were just full of water. The next morning, Hannah was still missing, and the police were getting ready to resume the search. Back at the apartments, the sky had cleared and the water in the streams and ditches had subsided. As a man was walking his dog in that wooded area near the lake, he saw in the distance what he first believed to be a mannequin, tossed in the stream bed. As he walked closer, he was shocked to find it was actually the body of 16-year-old Hannah Truelove. When the police came and roped off the scene, they found that Hannah had been stabbed multiple times with a knife, but because her body had been submerged in moving waters all night, barely any forensic evidence could be recovered. Her mother Mona and the community were absolutely devastated. The kids painted a memorial for Hannah on a large rock located near the high school, and many friends and family attended her service. So what happened to Hannah Truelove on the night of August 23, 2012? Was this a random act of violence? Was she killed by someone she knew? Was there any indication in the weeks or days leading up to her death that she was in danger? The first clues found actually came from Hannah's Twitter account and initially led the police to believe she may have had a stalker. Just days before her death, she posted this tweet reading, "So scared right now," as well as a few others about having a stalker and needing to get out of the apartment complex. But as the police kept digging and speaking with friends and family, these tweets seemed to have more to do with her just being a dramatic teenage girl, and there was no actual evidence that they were connected in any way to her death. Though I'm not quite sure what it was that led them to believe that. The tweets and the timing of them seem pretty concerning to me. In addition to the tweets, rumors were going around that Hannah had a secret cell phone that her mother didn't know about. Police investigated this rumor thoroughly and found no second cell phone, but did find that she would sometimes use her Nintendo DS to communicate with her friends. They accessed the device and messages, but nothing could be found that gave them any indication of why she was murdered. The police seemed to just hit dead end after dead end, and to this day we don't know what happened to Hannah that night. Police do believe she knew her killer or killers, and they used their rapport or friendship with her to lure her into the woods, as there were just too many people around for it to seem plausible someone could abduct her against her will without anyone noticing the struggle. Police also believe there may have been more than one person involved, someone who was with the killer but maybe is much less culpable for the crime. Maybe they just found themselves in a situation that they didn't want to be in. The police are encouraging that person or anyone who has any knowledge of what happened to Hannah to come forward and speak to the police. I want to end this section with a quote from Hannah's mother, who passed away in 2020 and was buried next to her daughter. "My name is Mona Harris. I am the mother of Hannah Truelove. Hannah's family and friends have been living a nightmare since Hannah was reported missing and found murdered. Our entire family has suffered and continues to suffer every minute of every day since that fateful evening. As her mother, Hannah meant and still means the world to me. I spent 16 years watching her grow and develop into a caring and loving young lady. Hannah had such a great sense of humor and a bright future. If you could have known Hannah, you would understand how important she was to all of our lives. Every day, my memories of Hannah come flooding back. What I wouldn't give to have her here with me again." I would like to send a message to anyone who may have information about Hannah's death to please come forward and help me end this nightmare. I am haunted by Hannah's death, as any mother could understand. Please help my family by coming forward with your information, even if that information is about your son or daughter. I feel sure you know they can't come to grips with Hannah's death until they are truthful about what happened to Hannah. We can't go back and save Hannah, but we can honor her memory and bring closure to her tragic death. It's the 1970s, and single mother to 3 daughters, Anita Redmond was working hard as a crossing guard in Doraville, Georgia. Doraville is the southernmost town we'll be looking at in this video and is a suburb of Atlanta. Anita took her job seriously, and that did not go unnoticed, as the Doraville Police Department would end up asking her to come work for them in the radio room, where most female employees at police departments worked at that time. But Anita kept impressing her superiors at the department, and she eventually worked her way up to officer, the very first female police officer in Doraville. Her 3 daughters would recall hearing, "Your mom pulled me over," often when they were younger. Anita was the perfect mix of strong, stern, kind, and empathetic. Oftentimes, her fellow officers would call her when they were having trouble getting someone in a car. I read that, quote, "She could talk to them and, for lack of a better term, sweet talk them into getting into the back of the police car, and everything was fine." Anita worked hard as a police officer for 25 years before retiring and taking a part-time job as a gate agent at nearby Stone Mountain State Park. Stone Mountain State Park is where I stayed for this trip and is a really unique place. Unlike any of the mountains in the northernmost part of Georgia that were formed from shifting tectonic plates, Stone Mountain was formed 2 miles under the Earth's surface as a large granite deposit. Granite is a stronger type of rock, so as the rock and land around it eroded away, the granite remained. Etched into the side of Stone Mountain are 3 Confederate leaders. The same man that made this monument later went on to make Mount Rushmore. There are 2 entrances to Stone Mountain State Park, where you have to pay a fee to enter. There's the main entrance and the West Gate entrance, which is the one that I used to go to my campsite. Anita worked at the West Gate as well, and in her retirement enjoyed the slower pace. That said, she didn't lose her bravery or tenacity. On July 16, 2005, just after midnight, someone approached her booth. She could be heard yelling 44, 44, 44 over the radio, which was the call for armed robbery. Within 45 seconds, a Stone Mountain Park police officer sped up to her booth, but it was already too late. Anita had been shot once in the abdomen, and the suspect was gone. Anita was rushed to the hospital, but attempts to save her failed, and she passed away that night. Her loss was felt deeply by the entire community, and hundreds showed up at her funeral procession. One of Anita's daughters said, quote, "The people that came out lined the streets the whole drive from the house to the funeral home where the service was held." This area didn't see a lot of crime back then, so it was big news that a former police officer was killed. Within 8 hours of the shooting, there were 25 GBI agents working the case.
We're canvassing the neighborhood around this gate to see if anybody that lives in this area might have some information or might have seen anything suspicious.
They did narrow down one person of interest, but after a thorough investigation and questioning, they just didn't have enough evidence to charge them. Because the motive was probably just monetary gain, solving this type of crime can be extremely difficult, as Anita herself wasn't specifically targeted. There is a $55,000 reward for anyone who comes forward with info that leads to an arrest. A plaque can be found at the West Gate booth at Stone Mountain State Park that showcases Anita's words to live by. It reads, "Watch your thoughts, they become words. Watch your words, they become actions. Watch your actions, they become habits. Watch your habits, they become your character. Your character becomes your destiny." It's 1996 in Cumming, Georgia, when 50-year-old Rob Indris walks into a salon for a haircut. He sits down and is absolutely captivated by the beautiful young woman cutting his hair. This woman's name was Patrice. She was a 30-year-old single mother with dreams of one day opening her very own salon. They end up really hitting it off and start seeing each other regularly. Rob seems to get along with Patrice's son Pistol extremely well, and in 1997, Rob and Patrice decide to make things official and get married. Fast forward to 2004, and after years of working in other people's salons, Patrice's dream of owning her very own had finally come true. Patrice was not only great at her job, but really easy and pleasant to be around, so her salon, Tamber's Trim and Tan, saw lots of success. Patrice loved her children deeply and was heavily involved in their lives. The morning of April 15th, 2004, Patrice took her 15-year-old son Pistol to school, just like any other day. Like many times before, they told each other that they loved one another before Patrice drove off to work. But just a few hours later, a school resource officer would pull Pistol from his biology class and ask him to try to get in touch with his mother. She would typically answer his calls, and if she didn't, she would call back almost immediately. So when she hadn't answered Pistol's third call and he was not hearing back, he knew something was wrong. What he didn't know in that moment was back at the salon there were multiple police officers investigating his mom's disappearance. They had received a 911 call from a customer who had come in to find no one there. Patrice's uneaten lunch was found near the microwave as if she was getting ready to heat it up. Her keys were on the counter, but Patrice was nowhere to be found. Only two things seemed out of place. There was cash missing from the register, and Patrice's car was not parked in its usual spot. The rest of the salon, though, seemed completely undisturbed. Patrice would always back into the spot on the side of the building, closest to the side door, but her car was parked in front of the salon instead. During the next few days, police would canvass the area, hoping that someone saw something, anything, that could give them some sort of clue as to where they could find Patrice. They were able to find two independent witnesses who saw another car parked in front of the salon at around 11:45 in the morning. One of those witnesses says as they came over the hill and Tammy's salon came into view, they noticed a blue sedan was parked directly in front of the salon. The front door to the salon was wide open, and she saw two women standing around the car. One of them, a taller, dark-haired woman, most likely Patrice, closer to the salon door, and an older lady standing on the other side of Patrice. The witnesses said the situation looked odd as they had their hands on each other as if either one of them had fallen down or was pushing the other over. The second witness passed right around the same time and saw essentially the same thing, but also saw a man with longer shoulder-length hair standing next to the vehicle. As the days, weeks, and months would go by, hope that Patrice's friends and family would ever see her again slowly eroded away. Almost 2 years after her disappearance, a few men working at Lebanon Baptist Church, about 6 miles from Patrice's salon, noticed some vultures swirling around in the wooded area behind the building. Curious as to what was back there, they walked into the woods to check it out and found a dead deer. But as they were walking back to the church, one of them spotted a white object nearby. When they realized the white object was a human skull, they immediately called the police, who came and found more remains. These were later confirmed to be the remains of Patrice Indris. So what happened to Patrice? Here's the 3 main suspects. One of the early major suspects was serial killer Jeremy Bryan Jones. Shortly after Patrice disappeared, he confessed to multiple murders, one of them being Patrice's. Jeremy claimed that he went to the salon that day and pretended that his car needed to be jump-started. When Patrice came out, he pulled a knife, abducted her, and then killed her and dumped her body about an hour away in Sweetwater Creek. When they searched the creek, they obviously found no sign of Patrice, and when her body was found in a completely different location, they pretty much ruled Jeremy out. The second major suspect is actually another serial killer. Belongings of one of Gary Michael Hilton's known victims, Meredith Emerson, were found in Cumming, Georgia. It was known that he had been to the area before and that he even told investigators that he enjoyed visiting hair salons, specifically around lunchtime, to ask for money. That said, nothing substantial could ever be found to link him to the murder of Patrice. The last major suspect is Patrice's husband at the time, Rob Indris. When Rob first came into their lives, he seemed like a great addition to the family and was extremely kind to Pistol. But according to Pistol, this act didn't last long, and that relationship quickly deteriorated, along with Rob and Patrice's relationship. Pistol claimed that Rob was extremely jealous and controlling of Patrice, and they would fight often. Rob even seemed jealous that Patrice gave Pistol, her own son, so much attention, and Rob would begin to act out towards Pistol. According to Pistol, just a few weeks before Patrice went missing, she had mentioned divorcing Rob. Rob, however, claims the opposite, that his relationship with Patrice was extremely close, and that Pistol was jealous of Rob and Patrice's relationship. We do know that the day after Patrice went missing, Rob changed all the locks on the house and would not let Pistol back in, even just to come get his stuff. The police thoroughly investigated Rob, and while his timeline the day of Patrice's disappearance doesn't eliminate him from being a suspect, they claim it greatly reduces the likelihood that he could have had time to do this. Either way, they just don't have enough evidence to arrest or charge Rob. We don't know what happened to Patrice that day, but police believe the blue sedan, most likely an early 90s Lumina or Malibu, could be the key to solving her death. If anyone knows someone who might have been acting odd around the time of Patrice's death, who drove a vehicle like that, this information would be invaluable to the police. The loss of Patrice was felt deeply by many people. She was such a positive influence in the lives of her family and friends and customers. Hopefully one day justice can be served for her death. I want to encourage you, especially if you live in the North Georgia area, to share this video with friends or on your social media accounts. The more light we can shed on these cases, the more likely someone slips up and starts talking. And potentially, even if it's just a small chance, justice can be served for the tragic and unnecessary deaths of Hannah, Anita, and Patrice. If you have any suggestions for cases or areas to cover like I did in this video, please let me know in the comments, as I'll be doing more videos like this one. If you want to see me do a deep dive into a single case, I've got a 2-part series out on a beheading in Putnam County, Georgia, whose perpetrator may have been a member of a black supremacist, ancient Egyptian alien cult in that same area. You can watch that here. Love you guys. See y'all in the next one.